Hey guys, Peter Franson here from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. Okay, well, let's talk about San Diego Comic-Con's announcements. Well, at least the announcements that stuck out to me, that were of interest to me. I'm sure that you'll have your own, and I would love to hear about those in the comments. But for me, it starts with Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. I have been wanting a proper, full-budget Dungeons & Dragons movie for a long time. We've never had that before. And looking at this trailer, it looks like it has the budget that I want for the effects. It's got the monsters and the world that D&D is known for that have that pseudo-serious design aesthetic. And it's got characters, this is really interesting, that are both wisecracking at times and inept at others. And I think that mirrors the types of player dialogue that can come out when you're at the table. Other times, sometimes you're like having a reality check, almost a meta type moment. I don't think they should go full meta, but I think having that wisecracking fits here better than, say, it does in a Marvel movie or something, because of the source material, because of the tone of what it's often like to play a game of Dungeons and Dragons, but then also to have these inept moments, because sometimes when you're improvising at the table, you don't always know the cool thing to say, you don't always have the great plan, and you just kind of, I don't know, And so I think that there's something they're doing with the tone here that could just be a really great fit for a Dungeons & Dragons movie. There's also humor that acknowledges the ridiculous aspects of D&D. I mean, outside of playing D&D, what the crap is an owlbear? And who has heard of one? I mean, that really is, when you step back for a moment, kind of a weird, ridiculous concept. And then the idea of bards singing and prancing in the background while their comrades fight, and that somehow helps them be more effective. I mean, the whole concept of a bard, apart from the cool effects it has mechanically, is really weird. And so when you translate that to a live action movie, I think poking fun at it a little bit is appropriate, and at the same time, though, I get the sense from the trailer that they're gonna be creating a genuine sense of danger at times for these characters, and that's important. Now, if I'm wrong about that and they're not able to really make us feel danger for the characters, that is not gonna work for me. Then it goes into MCU territory. But I think that there is reason to hope that they will be able to still bring a sense of threat and drama to the action and the stakes. Will the movie ultimately work? Will it have the tone that I want? I think if the movie is tonally like the trailer, then yes, it's going to work for me. Dungeons and Dragons is really hard, I think, to adapt tonally, but they might have found something here that really works. We're going to see in 2023. Next up, The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. This is a series coming to Amazon Prime very soon. The new trailer further establishes, I think, this continuation of Peter Jackson's visual design aesthetic. It looks like it's also going to continue the tone of kind of a classical, universal, grand legend, as opposed to, what's the whatever the Bones series on Netflix by the adaptation of Lee Bardugo's novels. My wife would know, dang it. Anyway, that has more modern, kind of young adult sensibilities, and this has a different vibe to it, as it should when adapting a writer like Tolkien. We are, though, getting a further departure from Tolkien in terms of new material being created that, yes, is based on his worlds, but I get the impression, I'm not a huge Tolkien fan at all, in fact, but I get the impression that this is less of an adaptation of his works and more like using his works as the lore, the background source material for the lore of the world, but it's a largely original story, or at least most of the details of scenes and dialogue and stuff like that are just being kind of made up by whoever's doing the writing here. So there's a lot more room, I take it, for modern writers to insert their own ideas, or for actors or directors to do the same. I will be disappointed if modern sentiments and messaging start surfacing. Sadly, I wouldn't be surprised at that, but I will be disappointed if that happens. I was also sadly not surprised that, despite looking extremely cinematic with its action, I mean, visually, this looks like it is at the top tier of streaming television. That's exactly what I want it to be. But the visual approach to magic does seem conservative. Not to magical creatures and magical goings-on, but spells. Like, people there, I don't remember anybody shooting lightning like in the Dungeons and Dragons trailer. You know, they're content, it seems, to keep magic largely invisible or rare or whatever. It could still work for me in some really nice ways, but I always like that visible magic. Anyway, we're going to have a better idea of what this thing is actually going to be like in both of those areas when The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power premieres on Amazon Prime September 2nd, coming up pretty soon. Next up, the new trailer for Shazam, Fury of the Gods. Actually, I think this is the first trailer for Shazam, Fury of the Gods. Anyway, it is seemingly retaining the tone of the original, which I would describe as being humorous, with action, and with heart, with genuine heart and some tender moments. Family is still at the front and center of this story, and I love that they're doing that. We'll see how they handle it, though. I mean, as family drama usually brings worldviews to the surface. Now, given that Zachary Levi is an outspoken Christian, and, you know, he's really gained some status in Hollywood, I don't know how much sway he's going to have over what the script is and things like that, but because of his outspoken faith as a Christian, I'm all the more curious how the themes might play out in this one. The actor playing Billy is noticeably older to me. In the comics, of course, Billy Batson is, you know, prepubescent and turns into this big grown Superman type character. Zachary Levi also is getting, you know, I mean, he's roughly the same age as me. I want to say in his 40s, I'm pretty sure. And I think in this trailer, in a close-up, I saw just a little bit of gray at one of his temples. And of course, that would be an intentional choice because they could dye his hair. They've been dyeing his hair because if you see him in interviews, he has graying hair. And so this makes me wonder if they're going to be allowing both Billy, who the actor is just unavoidably aging, if they're going to allow him to age and allow his Shazam form to age as they're going forward with a potential long-running franchise here. Either way, it looks like the novelty changes from being what it classically is in the comics of a kid going to an adult superhero to instead what will soon be an awkward, insecure young man, a 20-something, into a big, bulky Superman clone. Now, I think that I'm still probably okay with that. But at this point, starting with this movie, really, but especially going forward, but I really want to see it in this movie, it's going to be important to me that these two actors create a unified portrayal of Billy Batson. Instead of Zachary Levi just kind of being allowed to act like a kid. I felt like that there was some overlap in their portrayal of Billy Batson, but I felt like sometimes Zachary Levi was just like being his idea of a kid, not necessarily mimicking the personality and the modes of expression that the younger actor playing Billy would have. So whichever one, you know, has the power in this relationship, in this, you know, one of them needs to start really imitating the other, vice versa. Hopefully there'll be some working together on that, but I want to see a lot more unity in how that character is portrayed, regardless of which of the two actors is portraying him. I love that the effects budget seems greatly increased, as I had hoped it would be. It looks like we are going to get a full-on, properly cut-loose superhero experience this time with just as many, you know, effects and all kinds of crazy stuff going on as most other superhero movies these days. Whether the tone lands with me like I hope, that just remains to be seen on December 21st when Shazam! Fury of the Gods releases exclusively in theaters. And then related to that, next up is the new trailer for Black Adam, starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. This one continues, I'm happy to say, the tone of the first trailer. Black Adam is a character that is born out of personal tragedy and rage. Coupled with the high contrast visuals that we're seeing, it seems inspired by the vibe of the Zack Snyder DC movies, which also leaned into heavy drama when appropriate. And that seems to be happening despite recent official confirmation that there are no plans to move forward with Zack Snyder's original DC plans. Now, that's actually fine by me, despite being a huge fan of Zack Snyder's DC movies. It was his tone and style, not his particular story plans, that I want more of in the DC universe. Pierce Brosnan is really selling me the more and more I see him as Kent Nelson, aka Dr. Fate. And the shots of him in the Dr. Fate getup, which we're seeing, I think, for the first time in this trailer, look great. I can't wait to see him doing more. It looks like he's going to to do some really cool, awesome mystical stuff. I'm guessing that there's a different or a CG actor playing Dr. Fate in those moments. Maybe that's justified by like a transformation concept similar to that of Shazam. And I think Black Adam, although I think in Black Adam's case, he just always stays in his superpowered form. But I think it's a similar transformation thing going on there. So maybe they'll link that some way. I mean, Dr. Fate and Black Adam and Shazam all have ties to ancient Egypt, as does Hawkman, who we see just a little bit, looking great in this trailer. Anyway, so all that's good by me. I love that we can see a trailer like Shazam, Fury of the Gods, and then one for Black Adam, two characters very closely related and in the same universe, and have the tones be so obviously very different. Assuming that they both play well to their different tonal strengths, I'm hoping that the shared continuity flexibility in tone and style will inspire both the MCU and future DC movies, of course. Black Adam releases in theaters October 21st, coming up not too long from now, and has potential to be my most enjoyed superhero movie since Spider-Man No Way Home. We'll see, but I'm feeling good about the impressions I'm getting. Next up, Sandman. Speaking of coming soon, August 5th on Netflix, this series is premiering. It looks spectacular and stylish based on the classic Vertigo, Neil Gaiman DC comic. It's likely, I think, based on what little I know peripherally about the original comic book series, it's likely to play with major ideas about life, death, moral virtues, and the greater spiritual realities of the universe. Now, I'm doubtful it's going to do that in ways that I agree with, and it might even rub me the wrong way depending on how much it leans into popular yet illogical and uninformed ideas about Christian teaching or other philosophy. Just as detrimental, though, for my enjoyment, could be a lack of dramatic impact. The trailer gives me the impression that it may value style over dramatic substance, and include dramatic things as plot elements. You can see actors tearing up and stuff like that. That's not enough for me, though. You got to give the moments the proper breathing room to really allow them to connect with me as a viewer. You need to lean into them in a relatable way that I can emotionally connect with. If I can connect with the main character, I could totally be on board and seeing this being like, wow, because when I can have my cake and eat it too and have really cool visual style and drama that I really connect with, that's some of my favorite entertainment experiences of all time. So if they could do that, I would more than be on board for this. But if it's just weak philosophy presented via kaleidoscope, then I'm out. Either way, I'm going to find out when The Sandman premieres August 5th on Netflix. Okay, so now I'm going to spend the rest of my time talking about the MCU and the Marvel movies that are coming up, the Marvel shows that are coming up. IGN reported Marvel will conclude Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe this year with the She-Hulk series starting August 17th and Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Let's just stop there for a moment. What? That's concluding Phase 4? What was this phase about? I am mystified. The multiverse was a common theme, but seemingly lacking a common connection or a common cause. The MCU in Phase 4 has felt completely lost and stumbling in the dark to me, with Spider-Man No Way Home being the only real bright point in the things that I've seen coming from the MCU. Hopefully Wakanda Forever will be satisfying and have just nothing to do with the multiverse or whatever ingredients have been used to make most of MCU Phase 4. I think there's good reason to hope that will be the case, and I'm going to come back to that a little later on. But the Phase 4 wrap-up, She-Hulk, coming August 17th. They had a new trailer out for this. Lots of CGI faces delivering dialogue in what to me was painfully dead and animated fashion. I am not going to connect with this show. I don't even plan to review the premiere unless you guys really want me to and express that. Patrons, make yourselves heard because your voices do have some extra weight with me. In fact, going forward, I may only selectively review MCU movies even when they come to Redbox. I started by delaying most of my reviews until they come to home video, except for the ones that I'm personally really excited to see in theaters, So, but I'm thinking I might just skip altogether some MCU stuff going forward. I mean, if you want, I can talk about the themes and just gloss over quickly my other opinions. If if you still want me to talk about these movies and shows, but I don't like doing negative reviews, and so I try to avoid putting myself in a position that's likely to bring about a negative review from me. But that's what I see from the MCU for at least the foreseeable future. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever is coming November 11th. I think there's some hope with this one that it could turn things around for me. I'll come back to that again at the end. The Phase 5 slate that has been revealed is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. That's coming February 2023. I think that's going to be pretty standard, more Ant-Man that we've come to expect. Secret Invasion, this is a series coming to Disney Plus in spring 2023. It's about the secret Skrull invasion that Nick Fury knows about. Sounds like he's maybe going to be a main character or the main character. I don't know how they got him back in, but anyway, yeah, I think this is probably going to just be an expanded version of some of what we saw with the comedic bits and stuff going on between Nick Fury and the Skrull in Captain Marvel, so I don't think that's going to be a game changer. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 coming in May 2023. I mean, both of those previous movies have been so loved, they're not going to change the formula. That's going to feel the same and still not be anything I'm interested in. Echo coming in summer 2023. I did some quick research. This is a character I think that spins out of Kingpin in some way, so maybe some connections to Daredevil or something like that. I don't know. They could do something fresh here. I've never heard of this character, and I think with the lesser known characters, Disney might give them more freedom to take some risks or something. I don't know. Who can know the mind of Disney? Disney doesn't even have a mind, so that's impossible. Anyway, Loki Season 2 coming summer 2023. It's a sequel series, or whatever you want to call it, a second season. They're going to do more of the first, so that's not going to be a game changer. The Marvels, this is, I believe, the sequel to the Captain Marvel movie. That's coming July 2023. Again, I don't think that we're going to see any significant change in tone here. Why would they? Blade coming in November of 2023. Maybe has some potential. Wasn't there a Blade? Was there a short-lived Blade series, or they cast Blade and then the series got canceled? I almost want to say that there was an actor attached to it, and maybe they did something on Netflix that I don't remember and never saw. But this character has been so under the radar, even more than Punisher and Daredevil, compared to the rest of the MCU. I feel like there's an opportunity to do something fresh here, especially since he's so saturated in the horror genre. I think they can show us that, oh, guess what? We can do different tones. We can do dark. We can do scary or something like that. I mean, they seem to tease that they were going to do kind of a horror movie a bit with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, but that certainly didn't happen. We got horror elements like creepy creatures or creatures that historically are creepy, but they were treated in mostly a comedic way with no opportunity to truly be scary. So if they did that with Blade, they would really, I think, be ruining the appeal of that character to have him be all jokey and stuff like that. There's got to be some scares in a Blade movie or TV series. I didn't check to see which one this was, but Blade coming November 2023. Ironheart coming fall 2023. Never heard of this character. Did a quick Wikipedia search. Apparently, it's basically an Iron Man knockoff, not with any direct relationship. It's a student, a girl who is a college genius. She's a certified genius, so she's maybe not a girl in the strictest sense, probably late teens, early 20s, something like that. In the comics, I guess she does meet Tony Stark at some point, and he does approve of her making a suit of armor and becoming a superhero. But if Iron Man didn't exist, Ironheart as a character, I submit, would not exist. And so it's a knockoff, it's a spin-off, it's a third tier, it's just following this pattern of more characters that are unrecognizable or are just kind of limping along with the legacy of characters that have been retired since Endgame. Agatha, Coven of Chaos. I thought that Anna Gasteyer, I think is the name of the actress, played a very interesting character in WandaVision, and this surely must be just kind of her own show or series or whatever it is. I can see that being interesting, or at least have an interesting performer at the front of it, but it's going to be more kind of comedic stuff. I don't think I'm going to enjoy it. Daredevil Born Again, coming spring 2024. They've been kind of hinting and teasing and stuff with Matt Murdock, the actor who played Matt Murdock in the Netflix series, appearing in Spider-Man No Way Home. And so they kind of are like bringing back these redheaded stepchildren that they kind of denounced at some point. Now they're bringing them, Disney's got them back. And so now they're ready to trump them up and pretend they do exist again and put them at the forefront. And I think that's a wise move, because we are running shy of recognizable Marvel characters. And Daredevil, I mean, he's not even first tier. He's arguably strong second tier in the Marvel pantheon, as is the Punisher, but I don't know if there's any plans to bring him back. But I think whatever they're going to do with Daredevil, they should do it as soon as possible. Unfortunately, it looks like spring 2024. We're going to have to wait. Hopefully, they will allow him to keep what grittiness he did have in the Netflix series. I have tried watching that. I've gotten to the same point about 10, 20 minutes into the first episode, and his comic relief lawyer friend, I was just like, he started talking and delivering quote-unquote punchlines, and I was like, I'm out. I can't do this, you know. I'm sure it gets wonderfully gritty, but there's just too many other things I can instantly enjoy instead of sitting through anything that I don't for any amount of time. So I don't know that I'll ever be giving that one another try. We'll see. Captain America New World Order is coming May 2024. This has now Falcon is Captain America now. And it's going to be a weird thing. It's going to be, I think the release is going to be weird. I think people are going to always want to return to Steve Rogers, because people always want to get back to the original at some point. Whenever this happens in comics and the costume gets, or the mantle or whatever gets handed off to somebody else, we've all come to realize as comic book readers that has a limited period of time that's going to last. Maybe a few months. Maybe it'll have a great run and it'll even last a few years. But in comic book time, that's a very short period. Comic book time is measured in decades. And we always want to come back to the original man or woman that put on the costume and had the name and all that kind of stuff, you know. So I think this is... movie time has to be condensed, you know, because these actors, they age. You can have someone else be Captain America for 5 years, 8 years, and then bring Steve Rogers back, and on the drawn page, he hasn't aged a day, and time can be truncated. But in movie land, actors age. And even if de-aging effects get more and more advanced as time goes on, actors contractually will want to get out, or they'll want to do other things and not be pigeonholed as Captain America, you know. So it's going to be weird. I think people are always, to some degree, going to want the original Captain America. I think some people... I think there's likely to be some heat surrounding conversation about this movie when it comes out, and that people will make assumptions related to racism and stuff when people like it or don't like it or whatever. I don't know. I just think if I were to try to predict the future, I'd say there's going to be some messiness and some mixed reception at best for Captain America New World Order, unless they do what I don't think they're going to do, and that is give directors free rein to do something fresh. Give us a tone, lean into characters. I'll come to that. I'll circle back around to that in a little bit. Anyway, and then finally, Thunderbolts is finishing out Phase 5, July 26, 2024. I had to remind myself what this concept was about. It's a team of supervillains that are masquerading as superheroes. So kind of like Suicide Squad, except, as I understand it, they are actually putting on different costumes, calling themselves by different names, and trying to fool people into thinking they are actually superheroes. That's interesting. I think that's a good way to go, as a lot of these leading actors who played the heroes in the past MCU are retiring. Well, the villains might still be willing to stick around, especially if they can headline a Thunderbolts movie, so I can see that happening. But that premise very clearly allows itself, it would just be too tempting to lean into it for comedy. So I think we're going to get, again, no significant change in tone when we see Thunderbolts in July 2024. IGN also said Marvel also detailed Phase 6 of the MCU and confirmed it will begin with Fantastic Four on in November of 2024, and will end with Avengers the Kang Dynasty on May 2nd, 2025, and Avengers Secret Wars on November 7th, 2025. Who are these Avengers? Who's going to be on this team? Will there be anyone that I care about? My gosh. All of these phases will also be known as the Multiverse Saga. Okay. Fantastic Four can't get here soon enough. That is a ripe opportunity to give us something fresh, that we will care about, and that could be the glue that holds the rest of the MCU together. I think Spider-Man should have been that, but I don't think they were going to be able to give Sony a good enough deal to make that happen. But I've said before, Spider-Man should have at this point become the new Iron Man functionally. By that I mean Iron Man was guesting and cameoing in all these other MCU movies to give a sense of connection and continuity. I think Spider-Man from No Way Home forward should have been, or even like Far From Home forward, should have been popping up all over the place and tying together these tattered remnants of the MCU after Endgame, and they didn't even get that to happen. And so now Fantastic Four, I think, is possibly the glue that can hold it together. They'd be pretty new to the party to suddenly get the lion's share of the attention in an Avengers movie. And they start out as kind of their own team anyway, so I don't know. And the X-Men, where are the X-Men? Where's Wolverine? Where's even freaking Ghost Rider? You know, I mean, they're in a place right now where there are so few big name characters that could tie this thing together. When they promote like the Avengers is what's going to end this such and such phase, I'm like, the Avengers is only as cool as the people on the team, you know? And I think now your big tentpole movies maybe should be X-Men. Maybe should be, I don't know, Fantastic Four. I know they can only have 4 people on the team at a time. Disney is a company made to make money. And they may be doing a great job. I have no idea what their numbers are like. I'm not questioning their business strategy or presuming to tell them what they should do from a business standpoint at all. But, like many overly opinionated nerds on the internet, I will share what they need to do if, hypothetically, they especially wanted Peter Franson's business. I guess most overly opinionated nerds don't do that. They just share what their opinions are. Anyway, you get what I'm going at. Phase 4 strikes me as a bottom point that the MCU needs to work up from. Kind of in the similar way to starting from scratch with Iron Man. I think that they need to kind of treat it like that and say, you know what, we have to earn audiences all over again. Because once upon a time, kids, I know it's hard to remember, Iron Man was like a who the crap is Iron Man? You know, I've heard of Superman, I've heard of Batman, yeah, I've heard of Spider-Man, yeah, there was some good Spider-Man. Iron Man? What the crap is that? And Iron Man became way more than he ever was before and became such a name. You know, right now we've got characters who are third tier, nobodies, knockoffs, or some combination of those three. And they need to get back to character to pull me in. They need to take some risks with those third tier characters and make them interesting. Character was what I think made Iron Man go from a nobody to a household name bigger than Superman. Now, a lot of moviegoers may not be aware of that. They might just think that was cool, and they might think of the cool action moments and the cool CGI and stuff like that. But Tony Stark is Iron Man, as he told us multiple times. And his character is what made Iron Man stand out and so interesting. The witty banter, all that kind of stuff. Those were character things, you know. But soon after Iron Man, they exchanged true character moments for punchlines that tried to emulate the witty banter of Iron Man, not realizing that what made that banter so interesting was that it was an outgrowth of his character and of his quirks and his flaws. You can't just give punchlines to all the different characters and just think that it's going to work. And for me, it certainly didn't, because most of those punchlines were not natural outgrowths of who those characters were. Spider-Man would be an exception. The humor and the jokes in that grew out of, you can see it in the performance and in the dialogue, Peter Parker's insecurity and trying to mask his insecurity. For that matter, that's what was going on with Tony Stark a lot of the time. He would make jokes and kind of stammer and say witty things, while you could tell from the actor's performance that Tony Stark was stressed and worried about something, but trying to hide it. But after a while, we just had characters in the MCU just throwing around one-liners and not seeming to really be bothered by their crazy circumstances. And that's when all the tension got sucked out of Marvel movies for me, and why it continues to be sucked out in so many of them. But it was character that made Iron Man go from a nobody to a name bigger than Superman. And I think that they could do that again if they really wanted to with the rest of the MCU, even in the state that it's in now. But gosh, yeah, I don't want this middle-of-the-road tone that they've had for a long time now, with a few exceptions, like with the Russo brothers movies. Those were clear exceptions that broke away from that tone. But most of the time these days, it's lacking a sense of stakes, content to insert more CG instead. Now, DC is my home turf. If you're watching the video version, I'm wearing a Justice League t-shirt. But I've just now come back to comic books after being away from them because I didn't like what was going on and wasn't interested for about 10 years. And very soon, after I dropped DC, I just found that I'm a bigger fan of character-driven story, no matter who the publisher is or who the studio is. So this is not like a DC fanboy just bagging on Marvel because I want DC to win. I don't care about that crap. For my money, I want a story that's going to engage me, and sometimes that's been Marvel, especially the what do you call it? The ultimate line of Marvel comics. Really loved a lot of what was going on there. Certainly more than what DC was doing at around the same time. When DC movies have tried to be like Marvel movies, I've disliked them nearly as much. So it's not some dumb fanboy thing going on here. It's genuinely a preference of storytelling and how tone is handled. Possibly more than any other setting on top of that, the superhero genre is capable of exploring these worthwhile themes of good and evil and justice and human dignity and purpose that, as a Christian, those things really resonate with me and ought to be talked about and explored. It's wonderful to have movie experiences we can come away from, and they get us thinking about some of these deeper issues of life, get us conversing with others about some of these deeper issues of life. When they can be a springboard for that, that's awesome. And I think comic book stories lend themselves to that almost better than any other genre, maybe better than any other genre, period. But trying to explore those things falls flat, I think, if audiences don't connect with characters and drama. If it's just a bunch of explosions and effects and they're just loving their popcorn and they go, oh, that was cool, they're not connecting with the themes. I think to connect with the themes, you have to have some dramatic connection as well. Otherwise, if you do notice the themes, you'll just be like, oh, they're being kind of preachy or whatever. Now, I don't need the MCU to adopt the serious, dramatically weighty tone of Zack Snyder's DC movies. Now, I'd love that, but I don't need it to enjoy these movies. I need them to engage me with characters whose lives I care enough about, who feel in some way vulnerable enough for me to be concerned when the CGI hits the fan. My hope is that now that even hardcore MCU fans are getting burned out on the MCU formula, that Disney will be willing to loosen their corporate grip and let their directors experiment and refocus on character. It's come out more and more over the years that although actors often have a very good experience and are given lots of flexibility in Marvel movies, directors are not. And there have been directors that have, at least one, maybe more, that have left MCU projects because of those kind of creative differences and constraints. But right now, I don't think they can lean on the Marvel logo anymore if they want to keep me and others who are losing interest. They need, just different flavors that will engage us in ways that we haven't been engaged with yet. They've got to change the way they are doing things, possibly from the ground up. Now, I don't expect to see any of those changes, even if they did decide to make them, until Blade in November of 2023. As I said earlier, I think that's probably the biggest chance they have coming up with a fresh property to really try something new. But I think Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, has the potential to help them start considering a course correction. The trailer has an extremely serious and mournful tone. Chadwick Boseman, who previously played King T'Challa, the Black Panther, passed away from cancer. The studio resolved not to replace him, but to allow T'Challa, the character, to pass away in the MCU as well. It's not clear in this trailer how that's going to be handled, but evidently that's what's going to be going on. I strongly suspect that, out of respect for Boseman and a desire to honor him in some way, Wakanda Forever will be a much more serious MCU movie than we've come to expect. Now, I don't think that's necessary in order to honor Boseman. In fact, I think it gives too much weight and significance to entertainment and or to his acting career, which is a job, rather than giving weight and value to him as a person. But that's a whole topic of its own that dates back with me to Heath Ledger and The Dark Knight. I'm not going to get into all that right now. However, I think this felt need that they probably have to honor Boseman with a serious, mournful tone might result in an MCU movie with a very refreshing and worthwhile flavor. The original Black Panther movie is one of my favorite MCU films. Loved that movie. It's got a great sense, I think, of balance in its tone. It allowed for fun, but also had great, heavy drama. I mean, oh man, on so many levels. Great movie. It didn't set trends like I'd hoped for the MCU, but I suspect, unless they really screw it up, that Wakanda Forever will be extremely well received and has the best chance, the best potential of any film to influence what the MCU looks like or what it can look like, what spectrum it can have going forward. But, you know, ultimately, we're going to see what the audience, what the critics, and what maybe the studio's reactions look like after Black Panther Wakanda Forever releases in theaters on November 11th. All right, those are all of my long-winded thoughts on the news that jumped out to me from San Diego Comic-Con 2022. You're probably thinking, wait, Peter, what about this? What about blank? Well, it's probably not included here just because it didn't look like my kind of thing, but shout it out anyway in the comments. I would love to interact with you guys there, but that's all I have for now. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. Hey, I wanted to let you know there are some dates below in the description of some live events coming up that you may not want to miss. And also, while I have your attention, check out my playlists to see some content that maybe you missed already that you'll be glad you found. That's all.